Good morning, guys. I just finished up the 6 a.m. class here at the gym, and I thought I would take a second to go over how, in my opinion, the ketogenic diet sort of left me flat once I became a high-performance athlete. Now, when I first started doing the ketogenic diet, I was sedentary and obese. I didn't know much about training. This was back in like 2008. And I was lifting weights in the way that I knew how, but it wasn't very intense. And I was still pretty overweight. So doing the ketogenic diet for 5 years, plus as I became more of an advanced athlete and I started to get leaner and I started to grow muscle, what I realized is that I started cramping up after I would train. And whatever muscles that I used for that training would cramp up afterwards. And I remember doing pull-ups one day and I came home to eat and I went to lift the fork to my mouth and my bicep and my forearm cramped up like this. And then I lifted my other arm to try to straighten that arm down and it cramped up as well. So I had to tuck both arms underneath the table and stand up to relieve that cramping on my forearms. Now at this point, I wasn't sure what was causing the cramping. I was adequately hydrated. I was drinking plenty of water and I was supplementing properly with potassium, magnesium, calcium. And I was separating the calcium from the potassium and magnesium supplementation because the body prioritizes calcium over potassium and magnesium. So in my mind, I was doing everything right. But as my workouts became more intense and as I became more of a competitive athlete, I wasn't getting the necessary substrates of energy in the muscles just eating strictly with the ketogenic protocol. So what I had to do to relieve that cramping is start to incorporate fruits into my diet. So instead of going right to like what I would call garbage carbs, processed carbs like pasta and grains, instead of that, I started eating fruit because the mineral content is higher. They're not fortified by crap after the production like junk food is. And lo and behold, my cramping went away and my performance went up. I went from running a 30-minute 5K to running a 20-minute 5K in the course of about 5 years of eating more fruits. So before that, though, I went about 5 years only eating up to 20 grams of carbs a day, but those are mostly fiber from vegetables. I've since stopped eating most of my vegetables even. So basically what that means is I'll have like some cabbage every now and then, or some romaine lettuce, but that is about the extent of my vegetable intake. Most of my carbohydrates are coming from fruits, and that just works better for me. It keeps the cramping at bay, and it keeps my performance high. I also went from not even be able to squat 225 to winning a powerlifting competition squatting 460 at a body weight of 195. So my performance really did take off as soon as I sort of ditched the keto protocol and went more to a whole foods based protocol. Now in eating whole foods, the majority of my diet, it's meat, and it is largely fatty meat, although I do eat a fair amount of chicken breasts. I curb the vegetable consumption because although they do contain vitamins and minerals, since there's less of an insulinogenic response to that because of the low carbohydrates, I just wasn't absorbing those. So for me, the protocol that worked out best is when I switched to this macro range. I went to 40% fat, 30% carbohydrates, and 30% protein at 12 to 15 calories per pound that I weigh. So if I was to take my body weight at 200 pounds and take that times 12, that's going to give me my overall calories. And if I take that number of calories times 0.4, that's how many calories from fat. If I divide that number times 9, that's how many grams of fat I would eat in a day. And the same goes for my carbohydrates and my proteins. Since those are both 4 calories per gram, I would take my body weight times 12, and then I would take that times 0.3 to get the number of calories from carbohydrates and protein, and then I would divide those numbers by 4. Let me break that math down for you real quick. So if I'm going to make this math really simple for my body weight, what that would look like is I weigh 200 pounds. I take that times 12, so 12 calories per pound on sort of a milder training day. That would equal 2,400 calories. That's what I'm going to consume on a day that's very light, like a light training day or maybe an off day. Now, on a heavy training day, I'm going to take my body weight times 15 and eat 3,000 calories. The macro breakdown is going to be the same though, regardless of which calculation I'm using. If I take 2,400 times 0.4 for 40% of my caloric intake coming from fat, that would be 960 of those 2,400 calories. Now, if I divide that by 9, that's how many grams of fat I'm going to consume in a day, which is 106. Now, if I take that times 0.3 for my protein and carbs, since protein and carbs are 4 calories per gram at 30% of my overall intake, that would be 2,400 divided by 0.3 would be 800 of my calories, both coming from protein and carbohydrates. I divide that by 4 calories per gram for 200 grams of carbohydrates or of protein and 200 grams per carb. So these would be my macros on a light or off day: 106 grams of protein, 200 grams of protein, and 200 grams of carbohydrate. Now I would run this same calculation through for a heavy training day to get my breakdown for protein, carbs, and fats on my heavy training day. Now keep in mind, this is gonna work, this calculation is gonna work for most people if you have an intense training protocol, but you're not beating the shit out of yourself either. You wanna have a training protocol that makes you feel good about it, but at the same time, it's not so much that you're crawling out of the gym every damn day. So I don't crush myself, but I do have a higher volume. And the reason for that is, if you take 2 people, and let's say they're both working on something that's calisthenic based, like a pull-up, for example, and you're trying to get to 30 pull-ups. That's the goal, is to be able to do 30 dead hang pull-ups, which is quite a bit. If you take one guy that does 2 sets of 10 twice a day, every day, and then you take another guy who does 5 sets of 10 every single day, one guy is going to get crushed. The 5 sets of 10 guy is going to get crushed, and he's not going to be able to recover from the workouts. And his volume is going to go down because it's going to be forced to go down because he's doing too much. Where the other guy that's doing a little compared to what he can do, the volume stacks up over a 6-month period, or stretch that into a year. The volume stacks up and he's able to do those every day without too much muscle breakdown. And so at the end of a year period, you take a guy that's just doing too much and he can't adapt, and his volume has to come down because his muscles are no longer capable of doing that much volume, versus the guy that's doing a little bit less is going to get more out of his training in a longer period of time. So consistency is what this is about for the most part. You want to maintain a very consistent training protocol of not doing too much. So for those of you who were curious, that is my macro breakdown. This is what I eat on a off or low volume day, and this is what I eat on a high volume day. Now keep in mind, I only eat whole foods for the most part. For the most part, it's going to be fruits, and meat is going to be the basis of my dietary protocol. You don't need much else, if anything else. The only time you would actually want something that's maybe a processed food is if you're just losing your damn mind and you want to have a bite of something at dinner, and it's not going to throw you off too much. So I'm not big on abstinence when it comes to maintaining a strict dietary protocol. I do believe that every now and then, if you have self-control, that you can take a bite of something here and there and it's not going to throw you off, versus just going insane, sitting in front of a table full of bread and not getting to have a bite. So later you go to the gas station and you binge eat. So that's what I'm about. Anyway, I hope this sheds some light on why I stopped eating the ketogenic protocol. And for those of you out there who it may have left short as well, I know a lot of the big influencers that used to be ketogenic are now going towards this for the same reason. They, at some point, wanted to increase their performance, but their dietary protocol wasn't really leading to that high performance. So this is it. That's me. If you guys have any questions, ask those in the comments below, and I'll get those answered for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.